I live alone. That's not a cry for sympathy, it's just the truth. A small third-floor apartment tucked into the older side of the city, close enough to downtown to hear sirens at night, far enough away that the rent doesn't strangle me. I like the quiet, the solitude. It keeps things simple. Or it did. Until last Tuesday. It started with the blinking red light. I was brushing my teeth, half-dressed and half asleep, when I saw it, tiny, sharp, and flickering from the bookshelf across from my bed. Just a dot. No sound, no movement. But it was there. I squinted, thought maybe I was imagining things. Walked over, bent down. That's when I saw it. Tucked inside an old hardcover copy of Catch 22, where the pages had been hollowed out, was a small black device no bigger than a thumb drive. A pinhole lens. The blinking red light. My hand started shaking before my mind even caught up. I yanked it out of the book. The false pages spilled onto the floor like confetti. And I just stood there, holding it. Frozen. Because I live alone. No roommate. No cleaning service. No one else should have had access. But someone did. I didn't sleep that night. I turned my whole apartment upside down. Pulled drawers, ripped open vents, inspected every socket and light fixture. I found 2 more cameras. One inside the smoke detector in the hallway. One behind the vent in the bathroom. I wanted to puke. I called the cops the next morning, of course. But they didn't care. The officer said, "These things happen. You got any enemies? Jealous exes? Nosy neighbors?" He took the cameras, filed a report, and left me sitting on the edge of my bed like a ghost. They didn't offer to check the footage. Said the devices were encrypted, and if there was a crime, maybe something would turn up. Eventually. But I couldn't wait. I pried the back off the camera I'd first found. The one in the book. It had a micro SD card. I own a cheap little reader I use for photography, and within 5 minutes I had the files open on my laptop. There were hours of footage. Motion activated, so not constant, but plenty. Most of it was mundane. Me sleeping. Me getting dressed. Watching TV. Reading. But then, I saw her. It was from 2 weeks ago. 3:43 a.m., according to the timestamp. I was asleep, dead to the world. And someone, a woman, walked into my room. She didn't knock. She didn't creep. She just walked right in, like she owned the place. Blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. Black hoodie. Familiar posture. She came over to the bed and stood next to me for at least 30 seconds. Just stood there, watching me. Then she leaned down, kissed me on the forehead, and left. I paused the video, heart punching my ribs. Because I knew that face. I knew it too well. It was my ex-girlfriend, Leah. We broke up 9 months ago. Badly. She moved to Oregon. Blocked me on everything. She should be 2,000 miles away. So how the hell was she in my bedroom 2 weeks ago? The next 5 clips didn't answer the question. They only made it worse. The second video was from the living room. A week before the last one. This time, she didn't just come in and leave. She sat on the couch. She watched me sleep on the recliner. For 2.5 hours. I checked the timestamp twice. She never moved. Never touched her phone. Just sat there like a statue. How did she get in? Why? My mind was a blender on high speed. The third clip broke me. It was 4 days ago. She walked in holding a key. Came through the front door like she lived there. I was in the shower, completely unaware. She walked through the apartment, straight to my room, opened my nightstand drawer, and pulled out a file folder. My lease documents. Bank statements. Insurance papers. She took photos of everything. Then she left. I started to feel dizzy. Like I was seeing through a tunnel. That folder was still there. Right where I left it. But had anything been taken? Copied? Was she trying to steal my identity? Ruin my credit? Or was it worse? That night, I didn't sleep. Again. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. I couldn't explain why. I guess I was still hoping it was all a dream, or some twisted prank. I sat there for hours replaying the footage, watching her every move. And then I made the mistake of opening the 6th clip. This one was new, just 2 nights ago. It started in the bedroom again. I was asleep. She entered through the front door. But she wasn't alone. There was a man with her. Tall. Beard. Baseball cap. I didn't recognize him. He carried a bag. They walked around quietly, whispering. At one point, Leah said, "He still doesn't know. It's working." Then the man said, "We can't do this forever. He's going to figure it out." Leah replied, "When he does, it'll be too late." The video cut off right after that. That's when I knew I wasn't being watched. I was being studied. followed, played with. But for what? And who else was in on it? I barely remember driving to work the next morning. I'd watched the same 6 videos on loop all night. They burned into my brain like cigarette ash. Every blink of my eyes flashed Leah's face back at me, superimposed over everything else. She was in my home, with a key. She was not alone. And they were talking like there was a plan. When I pulled into the parking lot, I just sat in my car. I didn't turn off the engine, didn't open the door. I just sat there with the sinking realization that my life, my boring, predictable, solo routine, was under someone else's control. And I had no idea why. First thing I did when I got home that night was check the front door. I unscrewed the knob, the faceplate, even the latch. There were no signs of forced entry. But more importantly, there was no tampering. This wasn't a break-in. Someone had a legitimate key. I never changed the locks after Leah left. Why would I? We ended on a note of mutual loathing. She moved to Oregon. That's a 36-hour drive. The idea of her returning to haunt me, like some twisted ghost with air miles, hadn't crossed my mind. But someone let her in. Or she never left. Either way, I had to find out how. So I called my landlord. Yeah. The man's voice crackled through the speaker. Hey, Tom. It's Alex, Unit 302. I had a quick question. Shoot. Do you keep spare keys to the apartments? He hesitated. Sure. In a locked cabinet in the office. In case of emergencies. Have you given anyone access to mine recently? Anyone saying they were me? He laughed, actually laughed. Buddy, I don't even know what you look like. I gritted my teeth. Can I come by and check? Just to make sure nothing's missing. Sure, but I'll have to be there. When I got to the leasing office, Tom was already waiting. He opened the cabinet with an old brass key and pulled out a rack of labeled spares. He turned the tag around. 302, still here. My spare key was not missing. He handed it to me so I could compare it to the one on my own ring. Identical. Which meant either Leah had made a copy before we broke up, or someone else had. I felt sick again. You okay? Tom asked. Yeah, I lied. Just sleep-deprived. Thanks. I left, but I didn't go home. Not yet. I drove across the city to where my best friend, Mason, lived. We'd been close since college. Shared a dorm, watched each other spiral after bad breakups, celebrated each other's promotions and birthdays. If there was one person I could count on, it was him. Or so I thought. He answered the door in sweatpants, holding a half-eaten slice of pizza. Jesus, man. You look like roadkill. Yeah. We need to talk. We sat in his living room. I told him everything. The camera. The footage. Leah. The guy with her. He didn't say a word until I was finished. Then he leaned back and muttered, Fuck. That's all you've got? No, dude. I mean, this is messed up. Are you sure it was her? I have video, Mason. She kissed me on the forehead while I was asleep. He rubbed his temples. And you have no idea how she got in. I shook my head. He went quiet for a long time, then said something that nearly made my heart stop. You don't think I gave her a key, do you? I blinked. Why would you even ask that? Because you gave me one. Back in February. Remember? When you flew to Chicago for the client pitch, and you asked me to water your plant. I froze. He was right. I had given him a key. I'd forgotten all about it. And I gave it back, he added quickly. Right when you got home. I swear. Did you ever? I mean, did Leah ever contact you after the breakup? He hesitated just a little too long. Yeah, he said. She did. I felt like the ground fell out from under me. It happened 6 months ago, apparently. Leah had called Mason, out of the blue. Said she wanted to know if I was okay. Claimed she left me because I scared her. Said she thought I was having a breakdown. She played the victim. Of course she did. She was crying, Mason said. I didn't know what to believe. But I told her you were fine. Then she asked me about the apartment. If you'd changed the locks. If anyone else had a key. He looked me in the eye. I told her no. My heart was hammering. Did you tell her you had one? He nodded. Slowly. Yeah. But I told her I'd given it back. I stood up. I think she cloned it, Mason. Maybe made a copy before she gave it back to me. His face went pale. Fuck. I'm so sorry. I didn't respond. I just walked out. I didn't sleep again that night. Instead, I ripped my apartment apart a second time. This time, not just looking for cameras, but anything else. And around 2 a.m., I found it. There's a crawl space behind the closet in my bedroom. It's barely a foot deep, just insulation, pipes, and dust. But wedged between the beams, tucked under a loose bit of paneling, was a leather journal. It wasn't mine. It wasn't old, either. The first entry was dated 11 weeks ago, and it began with, "He still talks in his sleep. Sometimes he says her name. I wish he wouldn't. But I can't blame him. He doesn't know I'm here yet." My blood turned ice. The next 30 pages were filled with detailed notes. About me, my routines, my moods, the way I walked, what time I brushed my teeth, when I got groceries, who I texted, what I watched. Sometimes it read like a stalker's fantasy. Other times, it sounded almost loving. He looked at a picture of us today. I knew he would. That's why I moved it to the front of the drawer. The freezer was full. I added frozen burritos to the top so he thinks he bought them. He hates chicken, but he eats them anyway. That's my boy. The man on the couch keeps asking questions. I don't like him. He makes this harder. Soon, I closed the book and just sat there in silence. She was here. She was watching me. She wasn't just some psycho ex. She had a plan, and I was already part of it. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in, voice shaky, and told my boss I had a family emergency. That wasn't a lie. Not exactly. Because when someone leaves behind a journal detailing your every move, when your ex is secretly breaking into your apartment and filming you in your sleep with some bearded stranger, you start questioning what family even means. I spent the morning staring at that journal, reading it again, then a third time. The last entry was the worst. He laughed in his sleep tonight. Just once. A small, soft sound. It made me cry. I miss that laugh. It used to be mine. I'm almost ready. Almost ready for what? At noon, I drove to the precinct. The same cop from before, Officer Martinez, was at the front desk. "You again," he said with a tired smirk. "I need to talk to someone. It's about the cameras." He raised an eyebrow. "Did you find more?" "I found something worse." I was ushered into a room after 15 minutes. Gray walls. Metal chair. A detective this time. Nameplate said Detective Brookshire. He barely said hello before cutting to the chase. "You have something for us?" I dropped the journal on the table. "It's hers. My ex. She's been breaking into my apartment." He flipped through it, casually at first, then slower. His fingers stopped on the page where she mentioned the man on the couch. "That's who I really came to talk about," I said. "He's been in my apartment too." She brought him in. "I've got footage. Do you want to see it?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he closed the journal and leaned forward. "Alex, do you remember speaking to Detective Greenfield last March?" I frowned. "No." "Who's that?" 3 months ago, we had a woman come in. Said you were stalking her. She showed us text messages. Photos. Claimed you tried to follow her home." My mouth fell open. "What?" He slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were a few printed screenshots. Texts. GPS data. My name. My phone number. It wasn't me. I'd never sent these. That's not real. That's not my number. I don't even know how to spoof this kind of. She had a restraining order drafted. Didn't file it. But she documented the report. I felt like the floor was tilting under my feet. She said her name was Leah? Brookshire nodded. "That's the one. She lied to you." He studied me. "That's one possibility." I showed him the footage. Pulled it up on my laptop and let it run. The video of Leah entering. The man with the duffel bag. Her whispering, "He doesn't know yet." When it was done, Brookshire stared at the screen for a while. Then he said, "That man looks familiar. You recognize him?" "Maybe." He pulled out his phone and left the room. When he came back 10 minutes later, he had a printout. A DMV photo. My stomach flipped. It was the man on the couch. Brookshire put it down and looked me in the eye. His name's Adrian Vance. Lives on the east side. Works at a private facility near the industrial park. What kind of facility? Brookshire paused. Psychiatric research. That night, I didn't sleep again. I didn't even lie down. I stayed on the floor with a knife in my lap and the journal open beside me. Adrian Vance. That name wasn't mentioned in the journal, but I recognized something else in the scribbled notes I hadn't before. A phrase that repeated every few pages. "He'll remember eventually." That same phrase appeared 6 times, exactly. It haunted me, because I didn't understand what it meant, yet. But I would. The next day, I did something stupid, but I was out of options. I drove to the east side, to the address listed in the DMV records Detective Brookshire had shown me. It was a gated facility, frosted glass windows, security cameras, a plaque that read, Haven Ridge Center for Behavioral Cognition. I didn't know what that meant, but I didn't care. I waited in my car until someone came out. A nurse. Blue scrubs. coffee in hand. As the gate began to close behind her, I ducked out, slipped in behind the car, and walked straight into the lobby like I belonged. Nobody stopped me. I wandered for almost 10 minutes. Most of the rooms were empty or locked. One had a woman reading silently at a desk. Another had patients sitting in a circle, whispering among themselves. No one paid me any attention. Then I turned a corner and stopped cold. There he was, Adrian Vance, standing outside room 12, clipboard in hand, talking to someone I couldn't see. The hallway was quiet. His voice echoed. Not yet. He hasn't asked the right questions. But the stress is working. It's just like before. I pressed my back against the wall. Then someone else answered. A woman. Her voice soft, trembling. Are you sure he's stable? You said this wouldn't get this far. Leah. It was her. I peeked around the corner. She was in a white coat. Same as Adrian. A staff member. I didn't run. I walked. Fast. Back out through the entrance, out the gate, into my car. Then I drove home so fast I didn't even look at the speedometer. Every breath burned. Why was she pretending to be my ex? Why was she pretending to love me? Why were they watching me? I burst into my apartment, locked the door, shut the blinds. Then I went into the bathroom and stared into the mirror. And for the first time, I noticed something that had always been there. A scar. At the base of my skull. 2 inches wide. Thin. Faint. But surgical. I had no memory of it. I tore through my files. Medical records. Birth certificates. My phone. Nothing. Nothing before 3 years ago. No high school photos. No childhood documents. No family contacts. I didn't have any. I'd always thought that was normal. I told myself I'd been through something rough. A trauma. I told myself not to dwell. But now I knew the truth. Something happened to me. Something was taken. And they were trying to keep me from finding it out. The last journal entry replayed in my mind over and over again that night. He laughed in his sleep tonight. It used to be mine. I'm almost ready. I didn't go outside for 3 days. I unplugged my laptop, turned off my phone, taped over every outlet, camera, and peephole in the apartment. I even shoved a chair under the doorknob like I was in a horror movie motel. But none of it helped. Because the real terror wasn't outside. It was in my head. I couldn't stop touching that scar behind my ear. That thin, perfect line I'd never questioned before. Not until now. Not until Leah. Not until Adrian Vance. Not until I realized that everything I knew about myself might have started just 3 years ago. I had no photos from childhood. No videos. No contacts labeled mom or dad. I never thought it was weird before because, honestly, it was like I didn't care. It was as if a whole part of me had been quietly erased, and no alarm ever went off. That's the most terrifying part. You don't notice the memories missing, because the part that should notice is gone too. On the 3rd night, I gave in. I reconnected my laptop and dug until my eyes burned. I found an archive thread on an old neurology subreddit titled, The Havenridge Files, Behavioral Redirection or Psychological Eugenics. It had been deleted, but Google Cache saved it. It started with someone named G4V1NX, claiming he used to work at the Havenridge Center, where Adrian Vance was listed as lead coordinator for something called Project Echo. They erase the worst parts of people, he wrote. Violence, trauma, addiction, rage. But sometimes they go too far. Sometimes they take too much. We called them zeros. Patients with their identities stripped down to framework. No memories. Just instincts. The idea was to build them back up. One reply asked how they controlled the patients afterward. G4V1NX answered. They don't. They watch. They record. They manipulate their environment to create ideal behavioral growth. Patient 001 was the first, the most promising, recovered faster than any of us expected. But then, he started asking questions. I stared at that screen for a long, long time. Then I scrolled down. There was a blurred photo, a clipboard, a file. The name field was pixelated, but the patient ID was clear. Echo 001A. It wasn't a name I recognized. But deep down, I knew exactly who that patient was. Me. I called Detective Brookshire at 3:17 a.m. He sounded groggy, but I didn't care. I found something, I told him. Something huge. Alex, he said slowly. You weren't supposed to get this deep. That stopped me cold. What? I got a call. From someone at Havenridge. They said you broke into their facility. I couldn't breathe. I didn't break in. I walked through the door. I followed a guy. You're on camera. They're pressing charges. But they're doing illegal shit in there. They wiped my identity. They're watching me like a lab rat. There was silence. Then, quietly, he said, I believe you. Brookshire met me that afternoon in an empty parking lot outside the city. He handed me a folder. No badge. No backup. Just us and a bottle of off-brand water. Inside the folder were documents. Real ones. Medical logs. Photos. Notes written by Adrian Vance. Project Echo was real. So was Patient 001A. Subject exhibits high-functioning adaptive behavior despite total episodic memory loss. No recollection of past trauma. Displays obsessive patterns, anxiety, compulsive routines. Social bonds limited. Emotional detachment observed. We introduced Leah as a relational tether. Monitor changes in attachment, reaction to perceived betrayal, emotional regulation post-manipulation. The next line made me want to vomit. Response exceeded expectations. Subject believes all actions originate internally. Environmental variables remain undetected. They engineered me. Everything. My routines. My job. My apartment. The building. The way I feel about rainy days and chicken burritos. They created all of it. I looked up at Brookshire, my whole body shaking. You knew? I didn't know everything, he said. But I knew there was something off. They tried to recruit me years ago. Told me I could help reshape dangerous minds. He lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. I walked away. But they don't let you walk far. I stared down at the papers again. And Leah? She's not your ex. I figured. She's never been your ex. She was hired to play the role. She was supposed to monitor your growth after the reset. Help you reintegrate. My voice cracked. She kissed me. She thinks she fell in love with you. I don't remember driving home. I just remember the feeling. Like my body was still moving, but my mind had given up. Like I was just a passenger now. I wasn't real. I was a project. An experiment. A result. I walked into my apartment and screamed until my throat bled. Tore the pictures off the walls. Ripped the sheets from the bed. Slammed my fist into the mirror until it shattered into tiny, mocking shards. Then I sat on the floor, surrounded by pieces of a life someone else had scripted for me. And I cried. I didn't sleep. Not because I couldn't, but because I was afraid of what I might remember if I did. The next day, I made a choice. If they built me from nothing, then I could burn that nothing to the ground. They built a life for me like a movie set. A job. An apartment. A name I didn't choose. A scar I couldn't explain. An ex-girlfriend I never dated, who whispered, I miss you, while I slept. And all of it, wrapped in the illusion that I was healing from some unnamed trauma. But I wasn't healing. I was hiding. From the man I used to be. And now, I was done hiding. I bought 2 hidden cameras off Craigslist. Poetic, I guess. I installed one in the hallway outside my apartment, pointing at the door. The other I wore, tucked into the bridge of a pair of reading glasses I never used before. Then I called Leah. Blocked number. She picked up on the first ring. Alex, she said softly. Where are you? Home. You shouldn't be there. You kissed me in my sleep, I said. Don't pretend to care now. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I bet that's what you said about everything. Then I added, tell Adrian I'm ready. Silence. Then she whispered, he'll be there in 20. I set the stage. The journal on the table. The footage queued up on my laptop. The room dark except for a single lamp. And then I sat. Quiet. The door opened at exactly 6:43 p.m. Adrian walked in first. Leah followed behind him, her face tight and unreadable. He wore gloves, like he always had in the videos. Like he'd done this before. Alex, he said calmly. Let's talk. No. Let's finish. He raised an eyebrow. I know who I was, I said. Or at least who you made me forget. He didn't react. So I pressed play. The final video. The one I hadn't dared to watch until today. It was footage from before the reset. A security camera file that Brookshire had slipped into the folder without comment. A man sat in a room, arms bound, face covered in blood. He was screaming, laughing, then screaming again. That man was me. On screen, I lunged at someone just outside the frame. The sound of breaking glass. A woman crying. A guard pulling me backward, injecting something into my neck. And then silence. Adrian watched without blinking. You killed someone, didn't you? I asked. Before all this. That's what you erased. Adrian didn't answer. But Leah's knees buckled. Not killed, she whispered. But close. You attacked a woman. Left her in a coma. You said you didn't remember. You never remembered. She stepped forward, tears in her eyes. You were the first. Patient zero. You volunteered. They thought it would help. Give you peace. Wipe the slate. And you? I asked. I was your handler. But then I couldn't watch you smile at me and not know why. I stared at her. You fell in love with a stranger you helped invent. She nodded. Adrian stepped forward, reaching for something in his pocket. I drew the knife. Don't, I warned. It's not a weapon, he said. It's a key. He held up a flash drive. The rest of your life. The whole story. Your parents. The attack. What happened after? Why now? Because we lost, Adrian said. He placed the drive on the table. You remembered too much. You weren't supposed to. You were never supposed to find the cameras. He turned to leave and stopped at the door. You're not who you used to be, Alex. Whether you believe it or not, we saved you from something far worse than this. Then he was gone. Leah stayed behind. I didn't want to lie anymore, she said quietly, but I didn't know how to tell you the truth. You were the truth, I said. Everything else was a script. But the nights you watched me sleep? That wasn't in the project plan, was it? She shook her head. I looked at the drive, then at her. Stay. She did. I never used the drive. It's still in a drawer, wrapped in black tape, waiting. I don't know who I used to be, but I know who I am now. And maybe that's enough. I sold the cameras, painted over the hole in the wall, changed the locks. Leah moved in 3 weeks later. We don't talk about what she used to be, or what I used to be. We just exist, quietly, together. At night, sometimes I catch her staring at me, and I ask her, do you miss the version of me you helped create? And she always says the same thing. No, I love the man you became in spite of us. I was never supposed to know, never supposed to dig, never supposed to remember. But now that I do, I'm not looking for revenge. I'm not hunting for closure. I'm just watching the world that tried to erase me. Because maybe they'll come again. Maybe there are other projects, other zeros. And when they reach back out, they'll find me waiting, with my eyes wide open.